Julian Whitmore's phone screamed in his hand, his mother's voice shattered, sobbing accusations at the woman he called his wife. Thief. Liar. Stranger. And in that second, Julian realized, everything he believed was a lie. But why her? And what had she done? Welcome back, my amazing family and friends. If you're ready to dive into this unforgettable story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll bring you another incredible tale you absolutely can't miss. Let's get started, and don't forget to like and share to help our community grow. Julian Whitmore had built his empire brick by brick, code by code. At 38, his tech consulting firm commanded respect across Silicon Valley, but he'd chosen to plant his roots in Charleston, South Carolina, where the oak trees dripped Spanish moss and the air tasted of salt and history. His penthouse overlooking the harbor was a testament to clean lines and understated wealth. Marble countertops that gleamed like frozen waterfalls, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Atlantic's endless grey-blue expanse, furniture that whispered money without shouting it. But the real treasure of Julian's carefully constructed life wasn't measured in square footage or stock portfolios. It was Naomi. Naomi Whitmore, née Baptiste, moved through their home like poetry in motion, her dark skin luminous against the white linen dress she wore while watering the herbs on their terrace. 3 years of marriage, and Julian still caught himself staring at her profile when she didn't notice. The elegant curve of her neck, the way her natural curls caught the morning light, the focused intensity in her brown eyes when she was lost in thought. She was an art curator at the Gibbs Museum, a woman who could discuss Baroque painting techniques with the same passion she brought to debating the best local shrimp and grits. "You're doing it again," Naomi said without turning around, a smile playing at her lips. "Doing what?" Julian stepped onto the terrace, his bare feet warm against the sun-heated stone. "Watching me like I'm going to disappear." She set down the watering can and turned to face him, her eyes soft with affection. "I'm not going anywhere, Mr. Whitmore." He pulled her close, breathing in the cocoa butter and lavender scent of her skin. "Good. Because I have plans for you this weekend." "Oh." She raised an eyebrow. "More plans?" "Jules, we just got back from Savannah. This is different." He kissed her forehead. "Mom's been asking to see us. I thought we could drive up to Columbia, have Sunday dinner at her place. She's been lonely since Dad passed." Something flickered across Naomi's face, too quick for Julian to read. "Of course. Whatever you need." "What we need," he corrected gently. "She loves you, Nay." Naomi smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I know." 72 hours later, Julian sat in his downtown office, reviewing acquisition proposals with the kind of focused intensity that had made him millions. The Charleston skyline spread before him, church steeples piercing the afternoon haze. His phone buzzed, an unknown number with a Columbia area code. He almost didn't answer. Julian Whitmore. "Jules." His mother's voice hit him like a physical blow, thick with tears, trembling with something darker. Pain. Rage. Betrayal. His hand tightened on the phone. "Mom? What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Am I?" Catherine Whitmore's laugh was bitter, broken. "Oh, Jules. My boy. I should have told you sooner. I should have warned you before." "Before what?" "Mom, you're scaring me. What happened?" "It's her." Catherine's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "Your wife. That woman you brought into our family." Julian's blood turned to ice. "What about Naomi?" "She's a thief, Julian. A liar. She's been stealing from me for months, and I finally have proof. My jewelry, my mother's pearls, the Cartier bracelet your father gave me for our anniversary. All of it, gone. And today, I found a pawn shop receipt in my guest room, hidden under the mattress where she slept last month." The words didn't make sense. They bounced off Julian's consciousness like bullets off Kevlar, impossible to penetrate. Mom, that's insane. Naomi would never." "I have the receipt, Jules. Her name is on it. Naomi Baptiste. She didn't even use your last name, probably hoping I wouldn't connect." "Stop." Julian stood abruptly, his chair rolling backward. "Just stop. There has to be an explanation. Naomi isn't. She doesn't need money. We have." "Do you?" Catherine's voice turned sharp. "Do you really know what she needs?" What she wants. You met her 3 years ago, married her after 6 months. What do you really know about her past? Her family? Why she was so eager to marry into money? The insinuation landed like a slap. Julian's jaw clenched. She didn't marry me for money. She has her own career. Her own. A museum curator making $60,000 a year. Catherine laughed harshly. Versus a multimillionaire tech mogul? Jules, honey, I know you want to believe in fairy tales, but this woman saw you coming from a mile away. You don't know her. But even as he said it, doubt crept in, cold and insidious. Images flashed through his mind. Naomi's hesitation about visiting his mother, the way she deflected questions about her family in New Orleans, her vague explanations about college debt. Come to Columbia, Catherine said, her voice softening. Please. Come see the evidence yourself. I didn't want to believe it either, baby, but the truth is right here. Your wife is not who she pretends to be. Julian's hand shook as he ended the call. Through the window, Charleston gleamed in the golden afternoon light, beautiful, serene, utterly unchanged. But inside his chest, something vital had cracked. He grabbed his keys and walked out of his office without a word to his assistant. The drive to Columbia took 2 hours, but Julian didn't remember a single mile. His mind spun in sickening circles. Naomi's face when he'd mentioned visiting his mother, the subtle ways she'd tried to change the subject, her reluctance to talk about her past. Red flags he'd ignored because he was in love, because she made him laugh, because waking up next to her made him believe in something beyond balance sheets and market shares. But love made you blind, didn't it? Love made you stupid. His mother's house sat in an upscale Columbia neighborhood, a gracious colonial with white columns and a wraparound porch. Catherine met him at the door, her face pale and drawn, eyes swollen from crying. At 63, she usually carried herself with the regal bearing of old Charleston money, but today she looked fragile, diminished. Show me, Julian said without preamble. Catherine led him to the guest room, the room where Naomi had stayed last month when they'd visited for Catherine's birthday. The room was pristine, decorated in soft blues and creams, smelling faintly of lavender. Catherine knelt beside the antique 4-poster bed and reached under the mattress. She pulled out a crumpled receipt. Julian took it with numb fingers. The paper was worn, creased, but the words were clear. Palmetto Pawn and Gold, Columbia, SC. A list of items: pearl necklace, diamond bracelet, gold earrings. Total value, $8,500. Date, 6 weeks ago. And at the bottom, in a flowing script, Naomi Baptiste. The signature looked like hers. The same elegant loops, the way she crossed her T's. There's more, Catherine whispered. She opened her jewelry box, an ornate mahogany case that had belonged to Julian's grandmother. Inside, gaps yawned where treasures should have been. The pearls were my mother's. She wore them on her wedding day. Your father gave me the bracelet when you were born. They're not just valuable, Jules. They're irreplaceable. Julian stared at the empty velvet slots, his mind refusing to process what his eyes saw. Maybe someone else. Who? I live alone. You and Naomi are the only people who've stayed here in months. Catherine's voice broke. I didn't want to believe it either. I love her, Jules. I thought of her as the daughter I never had. But the evidence. She gestured at the receipt, at the violated jewelry box, at the truth that sat between them like a corpse. Julian's phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. Hey babe, working late at the museum. Love you. 3 words that should have felt like warmth. Instead, they felt like a noose tightening. What would you do if everything you believed about the person you loved turned out to be a lie? Julian sat in his car outside their penthouse for 20 minutes, staring at the glowing windows of their home. Inside, Naomi was probably curled up on the couch with a book, a cup of chamomile tea cooling on the side table, her reading glasses perched on her nose. It was her Thursday night ritual, the small, mundane detail that had made him fall in love with her predictability, her peace. But tonight, that image felt like a lie. Everything felt like a lie. The receipt burned in his jacket pocket like a live coal. He finally forced himself out of the car, each step toward their building heavy with dread. The doorman greeted him with a familiar smile that Julian couldn't return. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt interminable, his reflection in the polished doors showing a stranger, jaw tight, eyes hollow, face drained of color. The apartment was quiet when he entered. Soft jazz played from the speaker in the living room. Miles Davis, Naomi's favorite. He found her exactly where he'd imagined, on the ivory couch, legs tucked beneath her, a biography of Romar Beeden open in her lap. She looked up when he entered, and her smile faltered immediately. "Jules? Baby, what's wrong?" She set the book aside, concern flooding her features. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He couldn't speak. The words tangled in his throat, choking him. Instead, he pulled out the receipt and held it up like an accusation, like evidence at a trial. Naomi's eyes tracked to the paper, and something happened to her face, a flash of recognition, then confusion, then something that looked horribly like fear. "Where did you get that? Is it true?" His voice came out rough, barely recognizable. "Did you steal from my mother?" "What?" Naomi stood abruptly, the book tumbling to the floor. "Julian, what are you talking about?" "This receipt. Your signature. My mother's jewelry. Gone. $8,000 at a pawn shop in Colombia." Each word felt like gravel in his mouth. "Tell me it's not real. Tell me there's some explanation that makes sense, because right now, I'm looking at you and I don't know who you are." Naomi's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. "You think Jules, you actually think I would steal from Catherine? From your family? Then explain the receipt." His voice rose, months of buried tension erupting. "Explain why your name is on it. Explain why my mother found it hidden under the mattress in the room where you slept." "I don't know." Naomi's voice cracked. "I've never been to that pawn shop. I've never, Julian, I don't even go to pawn shops. Why would I need to when—" She stopped abruptly, her face crumpling. "You actually believe this? Oh my God, you actually believe I could do this?" The hurt in her voice was so raw, so genuine, that Julian felt his certainty waver. But then he thought of his mother's tears, the empty jewelry box, the signature that looked exactly like Naomi's flowing script. "I don't want to believe it," he said quietly. "But the evidence." "Evidence?" Naomi laughed bitterly, tears streaming down her face. "What evidence? A piece of paper that anyone could have forged? Julian, I've been nothing but good to your mother. I visited her every month, brought her flowers, listened to her stories about your childhood. I've tried so hard to make her love me, to be the daughter-in-law she deserves, and now you're standing here accusing me of—" "My mother has no reason to lie." The words exploded from him. "She's devastated, Naomi. Those pearls were her mother's. The bracelet was from my father. They're irreplaceable, and they're gone. So I'm automatically guilty." Naomi's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Because I'm the outsider? Because I didn't grow up with your money and your country clubs and your precious family heirlooms? Don't make this about—" "About what, Julian? About race? About class?" She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "Because that's exactly what this is. Your mother never fully accepted me. She smiled to my face, sure, but I saw the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Like I was something temporary. Something you'd eventually outgrow. That's not fair. Isn't it?" Naomi wiped her tears angrily. "I have my own money. I have my own career. I didn't need to marry you for your wealth. I married you because I loved you. Because you made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. But your mother? She's been waiting for me to slip up, to prove that I was exactly what she suspected from day one." Julian's head pounded. "She found the receipt in your room, Naomi. Your name is on it. Then someone put it there." Naomi's voice rose with desperation. "Someone forged my signature, planted that receipt to frame me. Can't you see that?" "Who? Who would do that?" The question hung in the air like poison gas. Naomi opened her mouth, then closed it, her face twisting with realization. "You know what? It doesn't matter. Because you've already made up your mind. You've already chosen to believe her over me." "That's not—" But Julian couldn't finish the sentence. Because wasn't it true? Hadn't he driven 2 hours to Colombia, seen the evidence, and felt his trust in Naomi crumble like sand? "I need you to leave," Naomi said quietly. "This is my home. Then I'll leave." She moved toward their bedroom, her shoulders shaking. "I'll pack a bag and stay at Claire's tonight." "But Julian." She turned back, her face wet with tears, her voice steady despite the devastation in her eyes. If you let me walk out that door without believing me, without even trying to find out the truth, then we're done. Because I can't be married to someone who thinks so little of me. Julian watched her disappear into their bedroom, heard the sound of drawers opening, clothes being thrown into a bag. Every instinct screamed at him to follow her, to take it back, to believe her. But the receipt in his pocket felt like an anchor, weighing him down with doubt. 10 minutes later, Naomi emerged with a duffel bag and her purse. She changed into jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back, her face carefully blank. She looked at him one last time, a look that felt like goodbye. I didn't steal from your mother, she said softly. I don't care if you believe me right now. But I need you to know that before I walk out, I did not do this. Then she was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. Julian stood alone in their apartment, surrounded by the life they'd built together. The Miles Davis record had ended, leaving only silence. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands and called his mother. Did you talk to her? Catherine asked immediately. She denied it. Said someone framed her. Of course she did. His mother's voice was gentle, sad. Jules, I know this hurts. But you did the right thing. You can't let her manipulate you. She seemed so genuine, Mom. So hurt. That's what good liars do, honey. They make you doubt your own eyes. Catherine sighed. Come stay with me tonight. You shouldn't be alone. But Julian didn't go to Columbia. Instead, he poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in the dark, staring at the city lights below, wondering how his perfect life had shattered in the space of a single phone call. Wondering if the woman he loved was a stranger. Wondering if he just made the biggest mistake of his life. Morning came cold and grey, the Atlantic churning beneath storm clouds. Julian hadn't slept. He'd spent the night alternating between replaying every conversation with Naomi, searching for lies he'd missed, and staring at the receipt until the words blurred together. At 6 a.m., he made a decision. If Naomi was innocent, if someone really had framed her, then he needed proof. And if she was guilty, he needed to know that too. He couldn't live in this limbo, this agonizing uncertainty that felt like drowning in shallow water. He showered, dressed in a suit that felt like armor, and drove to Columbia. Palmetto Pawn and Gold sat in a strip mall off Route 277, wedged between a check-cashing place and a discount tobacco shop. The building's yellow paint was faded, the barred windows dusty. Julian had never been inside a pawn shop in his life. His world didn't intersect with places like this. The interior smelled of stale air and desperation. Glass cases displayed a jumble of jewelry, electronics, guitars, and tools, the flotsam of other people's financial disasters. An older white man with a grey ponytail sat behind the counter, reading a racing form. Help you? He asked without looking up. Julian pulled out the receipt. I need information about this transaction. 6 weeks ago, someone sold you jewelry under the name Naomi Baptiste. The man glanced at the receipt, then at Julian with new interest, taking in the expensive suit, the Rolex, the bearing of someone who didn't belong here. You a cop? No. I'm involved in the case. I need to know if you remember the person who made this sale. I see dozens of people a day, man. Can't remember everyone. Julian pulled out his wallet and placed $500 bills on the counter. Does this help your memory? The pawn shop owner's eyes widened. He took the receipt, studying it more carefully, then disappeared into a back room. Julian heard the sound of file cabinets opening, papers rustling. When the man returned, he had a folder. Baptiste. Right. I remember now. He opened the folder, revealing a photocopy of a driver's license. We're required to record ID for transactions over $1,000. Here's what she showed me. Julian's heart stopped. The driver's license photo showed a black woman with Naomi's name and birth date. But the face was wrong. Older, harder, with different cheekbones and a scar above the left eyebrow. The address listed was in New Orleans, not Charleston. This isn't my wife, Julian breathed. Your wife. The owner squinted at him. Look, man, I just take what they give me. License looked legit, signature matched. That's all I'm required to check. The jewelry, do you still have it? Sold most of it within a week. But the man checked his computer. The pearl necklace is still here. Priced too high, nobody's biting. I'll buy it. All of it, whatever you still have from this transaction. 10 minutes later, Julian walked out with a small velvet pouch containing his grandmother's pearls and a photocopy of the fake ID. His mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Someone had stolen Naomi's identity. Someone who knew about his family, about his mother's jewelry, about when Naomi would be visiting. Someone who'd planned this meticulously, down to forging her signature and planting evidence. But who? And why? Julian's next stop was the Columbia Police Department. He asked for Detective Maria Hernandez, a woman his mother had mentioned, someone who'd taken her initial report when she discovered the theft. Detective Hernandez was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to Julian's story, examined the fake ID, and frowned deeply. "This is identity theft on top of burglary," she said. "Much more serious than a simple case of stealing from family. Why didn't your mother mention that the suspect might not actually be your wife?" "Because she didn't know. She just saw the receipt with Naomi's name and assumed," Julian's voice caught. "We all assumed. Never assume in criminal investigations." Hernandez pulled up a file on her computer. "Your mother reported the theft 3 days ago, but she didn't mention finding the receipt until yesterday. That's when she called you, correct?" "Yes." "And the receipt was supposedly hidden under the mattress in the guest room." Julian nodded, not liking the direction of her questions. "Mr. Whitmore, when exactly did your wife last visit your mother?" "Last month. My mother's birthday." "And the theft occurred approximately 6 weeks ago, based on the pawn shop date. So the receipt would have been under that mattress for weeks, through multiple cleanings, and your mother just happened to find it yesterday." Hernandez's eyebrow raised. "Does your mother regularly check under her mattresses?" The implication hit Julian like cold water. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that we need to verify everything, including how and when that receipt was actually discovered." Hernandez leaned forward. "Mr. Whitmore, does your mother have any reason to want to discredit your wife?" "No. She loves Naomi. People lie about love. They lie about a lot of things." The detective pulled out a form. "I'm going to need to interview both your mother and your wife formally. And we'll need to trace how someone got access to your wife's personal information to create that fake ID." Julian felt sick. "You think my mother planted the receipt?" "I think we need to investigate all possibilities. That's my job." Hernandez's expression softened slightly. "Go home, Mr. Whitmore. Talk to your wife. And don't jump to conclusions about anyone." The drive back to Charleston felt longer than the drive up. Julian's thoughts spiraled through scenarios, each one more disturbing than the last. His mother, grieving his father's death from 2 years ago, lonely, possibly resentful of the woman who'd taken her son's attention. But Catherine wasn't cruel. She wouldn't deliberately destroy his marriage. Would she? His phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Whitmore? This is Claire Duval, Naomi's friend from the museum." Julian's grip tightened on the wheel. "Is Naomi okay?" "Physically? Yes. But Jules, she's devastated. She cried all night. She won't eat, won't talk about what happened. She just keeps saying that you don't believe her." Claire's voice turned hard. "I don't know what went down between you two, but that woman loves you with everything she has. I've never seen her happier than these past 3 years. So whatever this is, you better fix it." "I'm trying," Julian said hoarsely. "Can I talk to her?" "She doesn't want to talk to you right now." "Claire, please. I found something. Evidence that she might be telling the truth." A long pause. Then, "Hold on." Muffled voices in the background. Finally, Naomi's voice came through, small, fragile, nothing like the confident woman he knew. "Julian. Nay, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I went to the pawn shop, and the person who sold the jewelry, it wasn't you. Someone used a fake ID with your name. Someone set you up." Silence. "Then, you believe me now? Now that you have proof?" The question cut deeper than any accusation. Because she was right, he hadn't believed her on faith, on love, on 3 years of knowing her character. He'd needed evidence. I should have believed you from the start, he said. I should have trusted you. I'm sorry, Naomi. I'm so fucking sorry. Who would do this? Her voice broke. Who hates me enough to destroy my marriage? That was the question that had haunted Julian all morning. Who had access to Naomi's personal information? Who knew about his mother's jewelry? Who could forge Naomi's signature convincingly enough to fool him? And then, like a key turning in a lock, pieces began to click into place. The guest room where the receipt was found. The convenient timing of the discovery. His mother's insistence that Naomi was a gold digger from day one. The way Catherine had tried to slow down their engagement, suggesting they wait, get to know each other better. No. It couldn't be. But doubt, once planted, grew like poison ivy. Naomi, Julian said carefully, did anything unusual happen the last time we visited my mother? Anything that seemed off? Like what? I don't know. Just think. A long pause. She asked me a lot of questions about my family in New Orleans. About my maiden name, where I was born, my mother's maiden name. Said she wanted to know her daughter-in-law's history better. I thought it was sweet, but... Naomi's breath caught. Oh God, Julian. You don't think. I don't know what to think anymore. But I'm going to find out. 2 hours later, Julian stood in his mother's kitchen, watching her make sweet tea with the same graceful movements she performed his entire life. The house smelled of lemon furniture, polish, and fresh flowers, the sense of his childhood. Everything was familiar, comforting. Except nothing felt safe anymore. Did Detective Hernandez call you? He asked. Catherine stiffened slightly. Yes. This morning. She wants to interview me formally. As if I'm a suspect instead of a victim. She turned to face him, her eyes wounded. You think I'm lying, don't you? Your own mother. I think something doesn't add up. The receipt magically appearing after 6 weeks. The fact that you've been checking under mattresses. Julian kept his voice level. Mom, why didn't you call the police immediately when you found the jewelry missing? Why wait until you found that receipt? Because I was in denial. I didn't want to believe someone I trusted had stolen from me. Catherine's voice rose. How dare you question me like I'm a criminal? Someone used Naomi's identity to pawn your jewelry. Someone who had access to her personal information, birth date, mother's maiden name, physical description. Julian stepped closer. Someone who asked her a lot of questions last time she visited. The color drained from Catherine's face. You can't possibly think that I... Did you want us to break up, Mom? Did you want Naomi out of my life so badly that you'd frame her for theft? Get out. Catherine screamed, her composure finally shattering. Get out of my house. I don't know my own son anymore. That woman has poisoned you against your own family. But as Julian turned to leave, he saw it, just a flash, but unmistakable. On the kitchen counter, partially hidden by a stack of mail, a credit card statement with a highlighted charge. Palmetto Pawn and Gold. $8,500. Not a sale. A purchase. His mother had bought back her own jewelry. Which meant she'd known exactly where it was all along. Julian's hand trembled as he picked up the credit card statement. The date of the purchase, yesterday. The day before his mother had called him in tears, the day before she'd discovered the receipt under the mattress. Catherine had bought back her own jewelry after someone, she herself, had pawned it using Naomi's stolen identity. Jules, put that down. His mother's voice had changed, no longer wounded and fragile, but cold. Controlled. You don't understand what you're looking at. Then explain it to me. He turned to face her, the statement clutched in his fist. Explain why you bought jewelry from the same pawn shop where someone using Naomi's name sold your stolen items. Explain it, Mom. Make it make sense. Catherine's face had gone pale, but her jaw set with stubborn determination. That woman doesn't deserve you. I did what I had to do. The admission hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Julian felt his knees weaken. He gripped the counter for support, his mind refusing to process what he'd just heard. You framed her? You stole your own jewelry, created a fake ID with her information, pawned it, and then pretended to discover evidence against her. I protected you. Catherine's voice rose, defensive and sharp. You think I didn't see what was happening? You were so blinded by her, by that pretty face and her educated act, that you couldn't see the truth. What truth? Julian's voice was barely a whisper. That I found someone who makes me happy? That I built a life with a woman I love? That you married a stranger? Catherine slammed her hand on the counter. 6 months, Julian. You knew her for 6 months before you proposed. You didn't know her family, her background, what she really wanted from you. So you decided to destroy her. Julian's voice cracked. To make me think she was a criminal? To ruin my marriage? I was trying to save you from making the same mistake your father made. The words burst from Catherine like a dam breaking, and suddenly she was crying, real tears this time, but not of grief. Of rage. Of ancient, festering pain. He married me because I was pregnant with you. He never loved me, Jules. Never. He stayed out of obligation, out of duty, but every day I saw it in his eyes, the resentment, the feeling of being trapped. Julian stared at his mother as if seeing her for the first time. Dad loved you. He loved the idea of family. The appearance of it. But me? The real me? Catherine laughed bitterly. I was never enough. And then you brought home Naomi, and I saw it, the way you looked at her. Real love. The kind your father never felt for me. And I couldn't stand it. I couldn't watch you give to her what I never had. The cruelty of it stole Julian's breath. So you tried to take it away from me? Because you were unhappy, I don't deserve to be happy. I wanted you to see clearly. Before it was too late, before you had children with her and were trapped forever. Catherine reached for him, her fingers grasping. Jules, baby, she's not one of us. She doesn't understand our world, our what, Mom? Julian jerked away from her touch. Say it. Say what you really mean. Catherine's mouth opened and closed. In the silence, the ugly truth sat between them, unspoken but deafening. You couldn't stand that I married a black woman, Julian said flatly. All your talk about not knowing her background, about her being a gold digger, it was all code. You smiled to her face, played the gracious mother-in-law, and then you systematically tried to destroy her reputation because you couldn't accept that your son fell in love with someone who doesn't look like you. I'm not, but Catherine's face told a different story. Guilt, shame, and defiance warred in her expression. You are. Julian's voice was steady now, cold as winter. And you almost succeeded. I almost lost her because I believed you. Because I chose your tears over 3 years of her devotion. Because some part of me, some poisonous part one didn't even know existed, was ready to believe the worst about her. He pulled out his phone and called Detective Hernandez. Catherine's eyes widened with panic. Mr. Whitmore. The detective answered on the second ring. I found your evidence. My mother committed identity theft and fraud. I have her credit card statement showing she bought back the jewelry she claimed was stolen. She framed my wife deliberately. Each word felt like pushing broken glass through his throat. I'll be at the station in 2 hours with everything you need. Jules, no. Catherine lunged for the phone, but Julian stepped back. We'll be ready for your statement, Mr. Whitmore, Hernandez said. And Mr. Whitmore? I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. Julian ended the call and looked at his mother, this woman who'd raised him, who'd taught him to tie his shoes and read chapter books, who'd cheered at his baseball games and cried at his college graduation. This stranger wearing his mother's face. I won't testify against you, he said quietly. I'll give the detective the evidence, but I'll ask for leniency. Tell them you were grieving Dad. Not in your right mind. They might go for counseling instead of charges if Naomi doesn't press the issue. Naomi, Catherine spat the name like poison. You'd choose her over your own mother. You made me choose when you did this. You forced my hand. Julian moved toward the door. I'll have someone contact you about arrangements. A lawyer. But Mom. He turned back one last time. Don't call me. Don't come to Charleston. Don't try to contact Naomi. If you ever cared about me at all, you'll leave us alone. Jules, please. But he was already gone, walking out into the bright Carolina afternoon that felt nothing like the darkness crushing his chest. The drive back to Charleston was a blur of tears Julian couldn't afford to shed while operating a vehicle. He pulled over twice, once at a rest stop where he sat in his car and screamed until his throat was raw, and once at a gas station where he bought coffee he couldn't drink and stood outside staring at nothing. His phone buzzed constantly. Text messages from his mother. Please, let me explain. I made a mistake. Don't abandon me. Your father would be ashamed of you. That last one made him laugh. A harsh, bitter sound. His father, who'd apparently never loved his wife, who'd stayed in a loveless marriage out of duty. What a legacy. What a fucking disaster of a family he came from. He thought about his own marriage, how close he'd come to replicating his father's mistake. Not by staying in obligation, but by believing the worst about someone based on prejudice he hadn't even known lived inside him. His mother's poison had roots deeper than one phone call. It had been there all along. Subtle comments about Naomi's exotic beauty, questions about whether she'd want to raise children with both cultures, suggestions that maybe they should have a longer engagement to be sure. He dismissed it all as generational differences, old-fashioned thinking. He hadn't seen it for what it was, racism dressed in concern, bigotry wearing the mask of motherly love. And he'd almost let it destroy the best thing in his life. By the time Julian reached Charleston, the sun was setting over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He didn't go to the penthouse. Instead, he drove to Claire's apartment in the French Quarter, a modest two-bedroom above a bakery that always smelled like fresh bread. Claire answered the door with her arms crossed, her expression hostile. You've got 5 minutes before I slam this door in your face. I need to see Naomi. I know what happened. My mother, she framed her. She stole Naomi's identity, pawned the jewelry herself, planted the evidence. I have proof. I've already called the police. Claire's eyes widened. Your mother did this. Can I please see my wife? Julian's voice broke on the last word. Please, Claire. She studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. She's in the guest room. But Jules? If you hurt her again, I don't care how rich you are, I will end you. I know. The guest room door was closed. Julian knocked softly. Naomi? It's me. Can we talk? Silence. Then, the doors open. She sat on the bed, still wearing the same jeans and sweatshirt from last night, her hair pulled into a messy bun. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen, her face exhausted. She looked at him without expression, too hurt to even show anger. Julian crossed the room and fell to his knees in front of her. I am so sorry, he began, his voice shaking. Not just for doubting you yesterday, for everything. For not seeing how my mother treated you. For making you feel like you had to constantly prove yourself worthy of my family. For not standing up to the subtle racism and classism that I was too privileged and too blind to recognize. Naomi's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she didn't speak. My mother framed you. She stole her own jewelry, used your personal information to create a fake ID, pawned it, and then pretended to discover evidence against you. She confessed today. I have proof, her credit card statement showing she bought it all back yesterday. He pulled out his phone and showed her the photo he'd taken. I've already reported her to the police. Naomi stared at the screen, her expression unreadable. Your mother. The woman who raised you. The woman who was so jealous of what we have, so bitter about her own failed marriage, and so prejudiced against you that she tried to destroy our relationship. Julian's hands trembled. And I almost let her succeed. I'm sorry, Naomi. I'm so fucking sorry. You told me you were innocent, and I should have believed you. Not because of evidence, but because you're my wife. Because I know your character. Because you've never given me a reason to doubt you. But you did doubt me. Naomi's voice was quiet, devastated. The moment you saw that receipt, you believed I could steal from your family. After 3 years of marriage, 3 years of me loving you, supporting you, being your partner, none of that was enough to outweigh one piece of paper. You're right. Julian didn't try to defend himself. I failed you. I let my mother's prejudices infect me, and I didn't even realize it was happening. I thought I was so progressive, so open-minded, but when it came down to it, I chose to believe the worst about you based on, what? Nothing. Just her word and a forged signature. Naomi wiped her eyes. What happens now? With your mother? That depends on you. If you want to press charges, I'll support you. If you want her to face consequences, she should. Identity theft, fraud, she committed real crimes against you. And if I don't? Then I'll ask the detective to recommend counseling and probation instead of jail time. But either way, nay, she's out of our lives. I'm not exposing you to her toxicity ever again. I don't care if she's my mother. She tried to destroy you, and that's unforgivable. Naomi was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I don't want revenge. I'm not going to become the bitter person she tried to paint me as. But Julian, I can't just forget this happened. You broke something when you chose to believe her over me. Trust isn't just about big moments. It's about all the small choices we make every day. And yesterday, you chose wrong. I know. I need time, Naomi said, looking up at him with eyes full of pain and love and uncertainty. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. If I can feel safe in this marriage knowing that when things get hard, you might not have my back. The words were a knife to his heart, but Julian nodded. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. I'll prove to you every single day that I'm worthy of your trust again. I'll go to therapy, couples counseling, whatever you need. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. I don't know if you can make it right, Naomi whispered. But I love you enough to let you try. What would you sacrifice to rebuild trust after you've shattered it? Is love enough to overcome betrayal, or does it take something more? 3 months later, Julian sat in Dr. Patricia Washington's office, a black woman in her 50s who specialized in interracial relationships and family trauma. It was their 10th session together as a couple, and Julian had been seeing her individually for weekly sessions as well. Naomi, how are you feeling about the progress you've both made? Dr. Washington asked, her voice gentle but direct. Naomi sat on the couch beside Julian, not touching, but closer than she'd been in previous sessions. She wore a burgundy dress that brought out the warmth in her skin, her natural curls framing her face. She looked healthier than she had 3 months ago, less burdened, though sadness still lingered in her eyes. Better, Naomi said carefully. Julian's been doing the work. Reading the books I asked him to read about race and privilege. Going to therapy. Actually listening when I talk about microaggressions instead of getting defensive. It's different than before. Different how? Dr. Washington prompted. Before, I think part of me was always trying to make myself smaller. More acceptable. I didn't talk about racism when I experienced it because I didn't want to make Julian uncomfortable. I laughed off his mother's comments about my hair being wild or her surprise that I spoke so eloquently. I convinced myself that love would be enough, that if I just loved him hard enough, the rest wouldn't matter. Julian flinched at the pain in her voice, but he didn't interrupt. Dr. Washington had taught him to listen without centering his own feelings. And now, the therapist asked. Now I know that wasn't love. That was survival. Real love means I get to show up fully as myself, without editing or explaining or making excuses for other people's prejudice. Naomi glanced at Julian. And to his credit, he's creating space for that. Even when it's uncomfortable. Dr. Washington turned to Julian. What's that been like for you? Confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself and your family. Julian took a deep breath. Devastating. Necessary. I thought I was a good person. You know? I voted the right way, donated to the right causes, said the right things. But I didn't understand that racism isn't just about obvious bigotry. It's about all the ways privilege makes you blind to other people's realities. He looked at Naomi, his eyes sincere. My mother's accusations worked because somewhere deep down, I'd absorbed the message that black women are less trustworthy, less deserving of the benefit of the doubt. I didn't think I believed that. I would have been horrified if someone accused me of thinking that. But when it came down to it, my actions showed the truth. That's important recognition, Dr. Washington said. Naomi, how does it feel to hear Julian articulate that? Validating, Naomi admitted. For so long, I thought I was crazy. Like maybe I was being too sensitive about his mother's comments, or maybe I was imagining the ways she undermined me. Having Julian finally see it, name it, take responsibility for his part in it, that matters. Are you ready to move back home? Dr. Washington asked directly. Naomi's fingers twisted together. I think so. But I'm scared. What scares you? That I'll fall back into old patterns. That I'll make myself small again to keep the peace. That the next time we face a crisis, Julian will revert to believing the worst about me. Naomi's voice trembled. I love him so much, but I can't survive being doubted like that again. It almost broke me. Julian turned to face her fully. Nay, I can't promise I'll be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes as I unlearn a lifetime of conditioning. But I can promise you this, I will never, ever take someone else's word over yours again without investigation. I will always give you the benefit of the doubt. And I will spend every day proving that you can trust me. How can you guarantee that? Because I know what it feels like to lose you. I spent 3 months sleeping in a home that felt like a tomb, wondering if you'd ever forgive me, terrified that I destroyed the best thing in my life. Julian's eyes glistened. I'm not saying I need to hit rock bottom to be a good husband. That's not fair to you. But I am saying that I've done the deep work to understand why I failed you, and I'm committed to continued growth. Not just for us, but for myself. Dr. Washington leaned forward. Naomi, what do you need from Julian to feel safe coming home? Naomi thought for a long moment. Continued therapy. Both individual and couples. Boundaries with your mother, real ones, not just saying you've cut her off while secretly taking her calls. Done, Julian said immediately. I haven't spoken to her since the day I confronted her. She sent letters, emails, messages through family friends. I've blocked her number and returned everything unopened. I need you to understand that my trust isn't fully restored yet, Naomi continued. It's going to take time. Maybe a long time. And I need you to be okay with that, not pushy, not resentful of the consequences of your actions. I understand. And if we have children? Naomi's voice caught. They'll be black children, Julian. They'll face racism that you and I never did. I need to know you'll protect them, advocate for them, believe them when they tell you about their experiences. I need to know you won't be like your father, present but disconnected, they're out of obligation rather than love. Julian reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. I want to be better than my father. Better than my mother. I want to build something real with you, messy and imperfect and honest. And if we're blessed with children, I promise you they'll grow up knowing they're loved exactly as they are, protected fiercely, and raised by parents who did the hard work to create a home free from the prejudice I grew up with. Tears slipped down Naomi's cheeks. I want to come home. Then come home, Julian whispered. Dr. Washington smiled, a warm, genuine expression. I think you're both ready. But remember, rebuilding trust is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be hard days. Setbacks. Moments when old wounds resurface. That's normal. The key is staying committed to the work, to honest communication, to choosing each other every day. 6 months later, Julian stood in the kitchen of their penthouse, preparing breakfast while Naomi sat on the terrace with her coffee, watching the sunrise paint the Atlantic in shades of gold and rose. She'd moved back home 4 months ago, and slowly, painfully, beautifully, they'd rebuilt their life together. It wasn't the same as before. It was better. There was more honesty now. More vulnerability. Naomi no longer censored herself to avoid conflict, and Julian had learned to sit with discomfort instead of deflecting. They'd started a tradition of check-in Sundays, dedicated time each week to discuss how they were feeling about the relationship, any concerns, any celebrations. Julian brought out a plate of scrambled eggs and turkey bacon, setting it beside Naomi's coffee. She smiled up at him, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. Thank you, she said, pulling him down for a kiss. Always. His phone buzzed. Julian glanced at it and stiffened. Naomi noticed immediately. What is it? My mother. Or rather, her lawyer. Asking if we'd be willing to meet with her as part of her court-ordered counseling. She's supposed to make amends to people she's harmed. Naomi set down her fork. Do you want to see her? Not if it hurts you. We agreed. She doesn't get access to you unless you explicitly consent. What do you want, Jules? Not what you think I want to hear. What do you actually feel? Julian sat down heavily. This was part of the new honesty between them, not pretending to be indifferent when he wasn't. Part of me misses her. Not the woman who did this to us, but the mother I thought I had. The one who made me chicken soup when I was sick and taught me to drive and cried at my wedding. He looked at Naomi helplessly. Is that stupid? To miss someone who did something so cruel? It's human, Naomi said gently. She's your mother. Of course you have complicated feelings. But Jules, my comfort has to come first. Not out of revenge, but out of self-preservation. I know. And it does. You come first, always. Naomi was quiet for a moment, watching the gulls wheel over the water. What if we did meet with her, but on our terms? In Dr. Washington's office, with her present as a mediator. Not for your mother's benefit, but for closure. So we can both hear whatever she needs to say, and then make a final decision about whether she has any place in our future. Julian's heart swelled with love for this woman. Her strength, her willingness to face pain head-on, her refusal to let bitterness poison her. Are you sure? No. But I'm tired of giving her power over our lives. If we meet with her, hear her out, and then close that door, maybe we can finally move forward completely. 2 weeks later, they sat in Dr. Washington's office across from Catherine Whitmore. Julian's mother had aged dramatically in the past 9 months, her hair grayer than blonde now, her face lined with sleepless nights. She wore a simple blue dress, no jewelry except her wedding band, and her hands shook as she clutched a tissue. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," Catherine began, her voice hoarse. "I know I don't deserve your time or your forgiveness." Naomi said nothing, her face carefully neutral. Julian reached for her hand, and she let him take it. "I've been in intensive therapy since the charges were filed," Catherine continued. "Working with a counselor who specializes in racial bias and family trauma. I've had to confront some ugly truths about myself." She looked directly at Naomi for the first time. "I was racist. I am racist. I'm learning that it's not past tense, it's ongoing work to unlearn. I convinced myself that my concerns about you were logical, that I was just protecting my son, but the truth is I couldn't accept that Julian loved a black woman." Naomi's grip on Julian's hand tightened, but she remained silent. "My own marriage was loveless," Catherine went on, tears streaming down her face. "My husband stayed with me out of obligation, and I spent 40 years feeling like I wasn't enough. When I saw how much Julian loved you, really loved you, in a way my husband never loved me, I couldn't stand it. I wanted to destroy what I never had. And I targeted you specifically because of your race, because somewhere in my twisted thinking, I believed you were less deserving of that love." "Mrs. Whitmore," Dr. Washington interjected gently, "what are you hoping to achieve with this meeting?" "I don't expect forgiveness," Catherine said quickly. "I know what I did was unforgivable. The identity theft, the fraud, the manipulation, all of it. I destroyed my relationship with my son, and I hurt an innocent woman who never did anything but love him. I'm not asking to be part of your lives. I just needed you both to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry." The room fell silent. Julian could hear his own heartbeat, feel the tension radiating from Naomi's body. Finally, Naomi spoke. "Do you know what the worst part was? Not the accusation itself, though that was devastating. It was realizing that no matter what I did, how educated I was, how much I loved your son, how perfectly I played the role of daughter-in-law, none of it would ever be enough. Because in your eyes, my blackness would always make me suspect. Always make me less than." Catherine sobbed openly. "You're right. And I'm so sorry." "Your apology doesn't undo the damage," Naomi continued, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "It doesn't give me back the trust one lost in my husband. It doesn't erase the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd ever be truly accepted in his family. It doesn't fix anything." "I know," Catherine whispered. "But I'm going to do something you didn't do for me," Naomi said. "I'm going to see you as a full human being, flawed, hurting, capable of growth. I'm not going to reduce you to the worst thing you did, even though you tried to reduce me to a racist stereotype." Catherine looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "That doesn't mean I forgive you," Naomi clarified. "And it doesn't mean you get access to our lives. But it means I'm not going to carry hatred for you. I'm going to let it go, not for your sake, but for mine. Because I refuse to let your poison infect my marriage or my future." Julian felt tears on his own cheeks. The strength it took for Naomi to say those words, the grace she was offering when she had every right to cruelty, it humbled him completely. "Thank you," Catherine said brokenly. "Thank you for your mercy, even though I don't deserve it." "You don't," Naomi agreed. "But I do. I deserve peace. I deserve to move forward without this weight. So this is goodbye, Mrs. Whitmore. I hope you find healing, but you need to find it away from us." Catherine nodded, accepting the finality. She looked at Julian. I love you, son. I always have, even though I showed it so poorly. I hope someday, maybe years from now, you might be willing to talk again. But if not, I understand. You've chosen a remarkable woman, and I was too broken to see it. Julian's throat was too tight to speak. He simply nodded. Dr. Washington guided Catherine out, leaving Julian and Naomi alone in the office. They sat in silence for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Are you okay? Julian finally asked. I will be, Naomi said. It needed to happen. I needed to look her in the eye and take my power back. You were incredible. The way you spoke to her with such dignity and strength. Nay, I'm in awe of you. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arms around her. We're going to be okay, she whispered. We've been through hell, and we're still here. Still choosing each other. That has to mean something. It means everything. 1 year later, Julian and Naomi stood on the terrace of their penthouse, watching fireworks explode over Charleston Harbor. It was their 4th wedding anniversary, and Julian had surprised her with a renewal of vows, a small, intimate ceremony with just their closest friends and Dr. Washington in attendance. No family. Just the family they'd chosen. Naomi wore a simple white dress, her hair adorned with fresh flowers. Julian couldn't stop staring at her, this woman who'd forgiven him when she had every right to walk away, who'd chosen to rebuild rather than abandon, who'd shown him what real love looked like. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Naomi laughed. Jules, you already renewed our vows. What more could you possibly? She stopped when she saw what was inside the box. Not jewelry. A key. What's this? A key to the Whitmore Foundation, Julian said. I've established a non-profit in your name, well, in both our names, focused on providing scholarships and mentorship to young black women pursuing careers in the arts. Full funding for undergrad and grad school, plus internship placement and professional development. Naomi's eyes widened. Julian. You told me once that you almost didn't pursue your dream of becoming a curator because you couldn't afford the unpaid internships required to break into the field. That financial barriers kept talented people out while privileged kids like me waltzed in. He took her hands. I can't change the past. But I can use my privilege and my resources to create opportunities for others. And I want you to run it. Full control, full decision-making power. It's yours. Tears streamed down Naomi's face. This is incredible. You're incredible. You took your pain and chose grace instead of bitterness. You fought for our marriage when it would have been easier to walk away. You showed me what it means to be truly seen and loved. Julian's voice shook with emotion. I don't deserve you, Naomi Whitmore, but I promise to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your love. She kissed him as fireworks painted the sky in brilliant colors, gold and silver and blue, reflecting off the water like liquid light. Around them, Charleston hummed with life, jazz drifting from downtown clubs, laughter from the streets below, the eternal rush of the Atlantic against the shore. They'd been broken. They'd been tested. They'd faced the ugliest parts of themselves and each other. And they'd chosen to rebuild. I love you, Naomi whispered against his lips. Not despite everything we've been through, but because of it. Because now I know, really know, that you see me. All of me. I love you, Julian echoed. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Below them, the city sparkled. Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. And between them, something precious and hard-won glowed bright. Trust. Rebuilt from ashes. Love. Tested and proven true. A future. Written together, honestly, with eyes wide open to both the beauty and the pain that lay ahead. They were going to be okay. Better than okay. They were going to be extraordinary. 5 years later. The gallery opening was everything Naomi had dreamed of. The Whitmore Foundation's first cohort of scholarship recipients had their work displayed at the Gibbs Museum, paintings and sculptures and mixed-media installations that spoke to the Black experience in America with power and nuance. The room buzzed with collectors, critics, and most importantly, the families of the young artists who'd been given a chance. Julian stood in the corner, watching his wife give the opening speech. She wore a vibrant African print dress that celebrated her Louisiana Creole heritage, her hair in elegant locks that she'd been growing for 3 years. She was radiant, confident, fully herself in a way that made his heart ache with joy. "She's remarkable," a voice said beside him. Julian turned to see Dr. Washington, champagne flute in hand, smiling warmly. "She is," he agreed. "And you've done well, too," the therapist added. "The work you've both put in, it shows. This foundation, the way you support her, the family you're building. You should be proud." Julian's hand instinctively moved to his phone, where the ultrasound photo was saved as his screensaver. 3 months pregnant, and they hadn't announced it yet, wanted to keep it sacred and private for a little while longer. A daughter. They were having a daughter. The thought filled him with equal parts joy and terror. A black daughter who would face a world that hadn't been built for her protection. A daughter who would need parents strong enough to fight for her, wise enough to guide her, brave enough to have hard conversations. But he and Naomi had been preparing. Reading, learning, building community with other interracial families. They'd moved past the crisis that nearly destroyed them and built something stronger, a marriage rooted in honesty, mutual respect, and the daily choice to see and honor each other. "Thank you," Julian said to Dr. Washington, "for not giving up on us." "I didn't save your marriage," she replied. "You both did that. I just held the space for you to do the work." Naomi finished her speech to thunderous applause, and her eyes immediately found Julian's across the room. She smiled, that radiant, full-hearted smile that still made him catch his breath, and mouthed, "I love you." He mouthed it back, then made his way through the crowd to her side. Where he belonged. Where he would always choose to be. Together, they greeted the scholarship recipients, celebrated their art, and looked toward a future bright with possibility. The past couldn't be erased. The wounds they'd inflicted on each other would always leave scars. But scars were proof of healing. Evidence that broken things could be made whole again, different than before but no less beautiful. Maybe even more beautiful for having survived the breaking. Thanks for experiencing this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it.